morning, Ohio. James Ernest of the Grueling Truth Radio Network here with Dale Tafoya, Billy Ball, Billy Martin, and the resurgence of the Oakland Athletics. Dale, thank you for joining us.
Right, I think you said resurgence again.
Ah.
Yeah, no problem. If you want, we can just do it. You could do it over.
I'll edit it later. No problem.
Yeah, no problem. I used to do a podcast. I used to do that all the time. No problem.
No problem. So resurrection.
Yeah.
Excellent. Of the Oakland Athletics. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, I've studied baseball history for a long time, and from the Bay Area and the Oakland A's. I grew up going to Oakland A's games as a kid. I lived in a town called San Leandro, California, and it was about 5 minutes from the Oakland Coliseum. I wanted to. I was just studying this history, this Billy Ball era in Oakland, and I know. Fans in the Bay Area remembered Billy Ball as just a fun, entertaining time where Billy Martin came here, did a lot of hit and running, stealing home, and just created this excitement here in the Bay Area. And it was very intriguing. And the team, Billy Martin's A's teams, never quite got to the World Series. They played the Yankees in 1981 and were swept by the Yankees, but just really diving and researching the bowels of A's history, I was able to see just the significance of what Billy Martin's arrival did for the A's and also for the Bay Area. It's really a story about him coming home. Billy Martin was a West Berkeley boy. He was born in nearby Berkeley here. It's about him coming home in 1980 and just rescuing a very sick, unstable A's franchise. A's owner, Charlie Finley, the owner at the time, one of the most innovative owners in the history of the game, but the game at the time of this story kind of has passed him by. And Finley couldn't survive the economics of free agency, and the franchise was just decaying badly in Oakland in the late 70s. And Billy Martin arrived, and he arrived when the team was in limbo. In fact, American League President Lee MacPhail, James, had postponed printing the 1980 schedule because of the A's limbo. So it's really a great story about Billy coming in, inheriting a group of these young kids, the Ricky Hendersons, Mike Norrises, Dwayne Murphys. These kids were used to playing in front of 1,000 fans at the Oakland Coliseum. That's how bad attendance was. Billy comes in, injects confidence and life in the whole area, and the Billy Ball era of Oakland A's baseball began.
So it sounds like he saved the franchise and kept it running.
Absolutely. And Billy Martin in 1980, as Finley was trying to unload the team. In fact, he was trying to sell the A's to an oil tycoon named Marvin Davis in Denver. Davis was going to take the A's to Denver, and the A's were going to play at Mile High Stadium, where the Broncos play. But the Oakland Coliseum refused to let Finley out of his lease. So Finley was stuck 1 more year with the A's in Oakland, and that's where he brought Billy in, and Billy Martin just created this excitement. He created so much excitement, James, that the new owners, Walter A. Haas Jr. and the Haas family, purchased the team and kept them in Oakland. So Billy Martin's influence really solidified their stay in Oakland because they were on their way to Denver, or maybe even New Orleans at the time. And Finley was always trying to sell the A's and move the A's because attendance was really bad in Oakland. Even when the A's had that great glory run in the early 70s, in 1972, 73, and 74, they only drew over 1 million 1 year during that time. So yeah, he really did a lot. Not only and his success not only translated into wins in the standings in Oakland, he had drawing muscle, and fans started to pour back into that Oakland Coliseum.
Oh wow! So in other words, the Rockies could have been created a lot sooner, and there would have been no athletics.
Right, great point. Yeah, the A's. Marvin Davis announced the sale announced the purchase of the A's on December 14th, 1977. The A's, it was a big announcement. It made national news. Charlie Finley was selling the Oakland A's to Marvin Davis. However, when Charlie Finley first came to Oakland from Kansas City, he signed a 20-year lease in 1967. So that meant Finley had 10 more years on his lease at that Coliseum, and the Oakland Coliseum officials refused to let Billy out of his lease, and they kept him in Oakland. That compelled Finley to hire Billy Martin just to provide some excitement, and it turned out to be a masterstroke hiring because it enabled Finley to unload the franchise to some wealthy philanthropists, the Haas family. Walter A. Haas was the chairman of Levi Strauss.
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal. Now, you mentioned earlier about stealing home. So that actually is a real thing? Because I always thought that was just something made up for the Sandlot.
No, absolutely. Billy Martin came in, and Billy Martin, when he was with Minnesota, he taught the great legendary Rod Carew the finer points of stealing home. Billy had some secret formula, and I don't know if he shared it with a lot of people. I'm sure he shared it with players about stealing home. In fact, the first spring training Billy Martin came to manage the A's in Scottsdale, the first thing he emphasized, one of the first things, was we're going to go on the windup. He emphasized aggressive base running, and one of the things he emphasized was stealing home, and he expected all the players, all his runners on base to be expected to steal, and when you're at third base, there's a chance he was going to send you home. In fact, James, the A's slowest runner on the team, a catcher by the name of Jim Essien, in one of the spring training games, Billy sent him home, and Jim Essien's feeling was, okay, if he wants me to steal home, I'm going to try it. So the slowest runner at Scottsdale, the slowest runner steals home. He steals home safely. The A's erupt in the dugout. It's like they win the championship. But it builds so much confidence in that young team, because if Billy says, the message was, if Billy said we could do it, we could do it. And that kind of set the tone with the confidence he instilled in that young A's team.
Wow. And then, of course, when it comes to stolen bases, they had the greatest base stealer in the history of baseball on their team.
Absolutely. And Billy Martin's arrival coincided with Rickey Henderson's emergence as a young player. Or you could say Rickey Henderson's emergence as a young player coincided with Billy Martin's arrival. His first year, and to this day, Rickey Henderson gives Billy Martin a lot of credit. Rickey Henderson was quoted as saying back in 1980, Billy Martin may be the best base stealer I could be. In fact, Rickey Henderson stole 100 bases in 1980, Billy's first year. 100 bases. Only Maury Wills and Lou Brock stole 100 bases at that time. By 1982, Billy's final season managing the A's, Rickey Henderson shattered the all-time stolen base record and ended up swiping 130 stolen bases that season. And as we all know, Rickey Henderson's going to go down one of the greatest all-time players in the history of this game.
Oh, definitely. And most humble. You forgot most humble.
Right. Absolutely. And here, he's from Oakland. He was born in Chicago, but Charlie Finley drafted Rickey Henderson in 1976 out of Oakland Technical High School. So he's a local product here in the Bay Area as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So tell us about the immense research that went into writing the book.
Yeah, it's a lot of research, and a lot of this research has really never been unveiled yet. And like I told you, James, there was this Billy Ball era in A's history. It's always been a fun time. Of course, in 1981, the A's, Billy's second year, the A's started the season 11-0, James. That was the best start in the history of baseball, 11-0. They shot to 17-1. They shot to 20-3 at one point. And in 1981, all five of the A's starting pitchers were on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. On the May Time magazine issue, Billy Martin, with his A's cap, graced the entire front cover of Time magazine. So Billy Martin really made the A's into this pop culture phenomenon. And going back to the research, being able to just study and going into the bowels of this story, I began to see all kinds of fun, significant accomplishments that Billy brought to Oakland, and it was a lot of research, a lot of interviews, and as I tell people, when you're writing a book, it's like you're opening a business because it's not writing is maybe only 30% of it. You're tracking players down who, for example, play with Billy. They're in their 60s or some of them in their 70s. It's just a lot of footwork, scheduling interviews. So, but as an author, we're artists and we're kind of creators. So when we encounter a subject, we have an affair with it. Sometimes we have such a romance with it, we just can't stop. And I couldn't stop researching and writing this story about Billy Ball.
Sounds amazing. So tell us, why did Billy originally leave New York to go to Oakland?
Well, what happened was, if you remember, in 1978, Billy Martin resigned. He was really forced to resign at a hotel in Chicago. But here again, James, whenever an owner fired Billy Martin, because Billy Martin brought success, he resurrected the Minnesota Twins in 1969 as a first-year manager. He went on to lead the Tigers to a resurgence after that. He completely resurrected Texas Rangers baseball in 1974. Then he joins the Yankees and brings the championship there. The owners always had to consider take into consideration the fans before firing Billy, because Billy would war with these front offices because Billy connected with the working class in every city. The working class fans loved Billy Martin. And when owners would fire Billy Martin, they would schedule boycotts and protests. So Billy was forced to resign in 78, but then Yankee fans are upset and they want Billy back. So George Steinbrenner announces that Billy Martin is going to return as Yankee manager in 1980. So the plan, according to Steinbrenner, was for Billy to be the manager of the 1980 Yankees. He wasn't supposed to manage the 1980 A's, but in 1979, of October of 1979, Billy got into an altercation with a marshmallow salesman in Minnesota, and it created some news, and George Steinbrenner fired Billy again, and by February of 1980, a few months later, Charlie Finley finally got Billy, tapped him to be the manager of the Oakland A's, and the rest was history.
So it sounds like Charlie Finley was a big part of Oakland's boom and bust, of their success and their failures.
Right. Well, free agency decimated Finley and the A's. Charlie Finley, like I said, a great innovative owner at the time. His ownership model was to draft, and Charlie Finley was great at evaluating talent. His ownership model was to draft and sign these players and keep them for a long time. Well, free agency changed all that, as we know. I mean, players will be able to go to the highest bidder, and that just screwed up his economic plan. He couldn't survive it, and that's why he wanted to sell the team. And he couldn't get out of his lease in Oakland, so he was just keeping the A's on life support in Oakland on a shoestring budget until Billy created the interest so he could unload the fans to the Haas family, the new ownership. So, yeah, I mean, Billy, we can't forget Charlie Finley brought 3 world championships to Oakland in the early 70s, but everything comes to an end, and it came to an end in 1980 when the Haas family purchased the team.
So why was Billy so controversial? Was it his temper? Was it his working class values? Was it his aggressiveness on the field? What made him so controversial?
I think all the above. He was just a ferocious competitor. He was born in Berkeley in the Great Depression. He fought to get what he needed, and of course he loved to drink, and he lived on the edge, and he was just very aggressive, but it worked, and he was a leader. He managed to, with this young A's club, the Ricky Hendersons, the Mike Norrises, the Mike Heaths, the Matt Keels, these young kids, Billy just brainwashed them and manipulated them into winning. The year before Billy got to Oakland in 1979, James, the A's lost 108 games. 108 games, and drew less than 307,000 fans. That's a season attendance. They lost 100 games and drew, in fact, on April 17th, 1979, James, April 17th, the A's announced a crowd of 653 fans. Insiders who were there said there was really only about 250 people there. But, Billy Martin just created this revival, and he injected confidence in these group of A's players that were used to playing in front of 1,000 fans every day. And he somehow got them to from 108 losses in '79. They finished in second place in 1980, and by 1981, they were facing the Yankees in the American League Championship Series.
So, what did his former players think of him?
Billy, you always had some players that loved Billy, and those are probably the players that he took care of. And there's also players that detested him, and maybe those are some of the players that maybe he didn't play. Billy was liked, but there was always some players, some egomaniac players, some narcissist players that always battled over the limelight. And of course, Billy wanted to be the face. He wanted to be, he was the entertainment. He wanted to be the show. And those players seemed to always clash with Billy. Of course, we know Reggie Jackson and Billy Martin clashed with the Yankees. So we had that, but you always had some players that didn't like Billy because, he was a showman and they wanted the spotlight and attention.
So why was Billy able to be lured back to New York?
Well, that's a great question, and as great revival that Billy sparked in his hometown in Oakland in 1982 was a very, very rough year. Billy was having some tax problems, and there was a disconnect with the ownership. The A's new ownership, the Haas family, really gave Billy Martin the keys to the kingdom. They made him. He was not only the field manager. They made him the A's director of player development. They gave Billy Martin a lot of power, and that's what he always wanted when he managed. He figured that if he's responsible to field a team on the field, he's responsible for the makeup of the team as well. And according to Peter Golenbach, an author that's done a lot of great Billy Martin books, who I interviewed, he said that Billy Martin was getting the itch to go back to New York, and there was an opening that a managerial vacancy that George Steinbrenner had, and he told Billy, "Hey, Billy, if you can get yourself fired at your job in Oakland, I'll bring you back to manage the 1983 Yankees." And in August, on a Thursday afternoon game in August, the A's shattered the all-time attendance record. I'm talking their all-time attendance record. I'm talking in Kansas City, Philadelphia, all-time. And that same day, Billy and some coaches roughed up his office. They tore his office, took pictures down with a baseball bat, and because the Haas family would not pay, he wanted the new owners to pay for his $100,000 tax lien he owed the IRS, and they refused to do that. And so, anyways, Billy Martin was fired during the 1982 World Series, and he eventually joined the Yankees in January of 1983 to be their manager.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like a lot of highs and lows in the story. It sounds like an amazing story that any baseball fan would want to know about.
Right, and Billy Martin wasn't this, I'm not painting him as this saint, but he had an ability to, when he would inherit a bad team, that team would start to win. And it's not that easy. I mean, he did it, as I mentioned, he did it in Minnesota, everywhere he managed. It didn't last very long. Billy Martin didn't have a long shelf life in any city, but he managed to resurrect the city, shake the franchise, and then move on to the next city. I always tell people, I compare Billy Martin to like just an evangelist or a crusader. He'd come into a city, have a tent revival, shake it up, and then move to the next city. And that was consistent in how it played out with the A's.
Wow. Sounds awesome. Before we let you go, where on social media, where on the web, where should they check out you and your book?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Dale Tafoya, just my name, Dale Tafoya, DALETAFOYA, and the book is out on all Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. It's on sale everywhere. And the ebook's out, the hardcover's out. There was some shipping issues with Amazon with the essentials, but fans are tweeting their books to me. They're getting them in the mail, so it's a pretty exciting time. It's really just really excited about getting the story out.
Sounds great, Dale. We've enjoyed having you on the show today.
Great, thank you. It was an honor to be on your show, James. Take care.